Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Youth Advocacy Day. My name is Sierra Rogers, and I am the new Central Engagement Coordinator for the Mockingbird Society. We have another MC, but hopefully she'll be joining us a little bit later. Just as a reminder, all information for links, groups, and meeting materials can be found on the Google Drive. The link for this page was sent in the registration email. Also, if you need any assistance, please visit the Google Drive to find contact info for your specific question. Thanks. So I'll be moving on to what is the purpose of Youth Advocacy Day and why do we engage in this advocacy? Well, let me pull something up to show you what that means. So Youth Advocacy Day is the accumulation of all of the hard work that youth advocates have done over the last year. Youth voice in legislation matters, and giving youth voice a space in each step of advocacy cycle is part of uplifting experiences of those who are being impacted. So with that said, I would love for us to move on to our land acknowledgement so we can start off our day. I invite everyone to pause, quiet, and reflect as we open this land acknowledgement. We would like to recognize that we are on the land of the Coast Salish, Interior Salish, and Yakima Nation tribes. They have taken care of this land before it was colonized, and they continue to care for, honor, and defend their land. We honor with gratitude the land itself and all of the Native tribes of Washington State. We would also like to recognize the historical and systemic exploitation and oppression of Indigenous peoples, enslaved Africans, and other historically underinvested people, which has led to the disproportionality in representation of these communities among the youth we serve and whose voices we seek to elevate. I ask that we keep this in mind as we work to transform the systems that have and continue to impact us. All righty. So thank you for taking the time. It's really important that we do the land acknowledgement. And it looks like my partner, Esther, is here, the other MC. Welcome, Esther. Could you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yes. Thank you so much, Sierra, for doing the land acknowledgement. Hi, everyone. My name is Esther Taylor. I go by she, her pronouns. I am a leadership team member for the Tacoma Mockingbird Society chapter. I'm so glad to be here with each and every one of you on this lovely morning of January 28th, 2022 for our Youth Advocacy Day event. So glad to be here with you all. And as we get started, I wanted to do a little bit of an introduction introduce myself a little bit more. Give you guys a little bit of background of who I am. So I'm in my second to last quarter at Walla Walla University. I'm studying strategic communication, and I'll be graduating on June 12th. So very soon, 4 months, cannot wait. It has definitely been a long time coming. I'm so excited to be here with all of you for Youth Advocacy Day, and I'm so glad you could join us. So welcome. And just as a reminder, all information for links, groups, and meeting materials can be found on the Google Drive. This link for this page was sent in the registration email. And also, if you need any assistance, please visit the Google Drive to find contact information for your specific question. Thank you once again for joining us. So glad you're here, and we hope you enjoyed the event. And now I'm going to pass it back to Sierra.
Thanks, Esther. All righty, so now we can get started. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. We'll go over the agenda and I'll walk you through that. And then I will be introducing somebody great to you all. So the overview, 10 a.m. morning program. This is what we're doing now. We're starting. 11 a.m. will be our lived experience policy panel. 11:30, you'll be zooming in for lunch with DJ and Trademark. Some of the groups will have a prep at 11:30, so be in mind of that. And they'll be starting at 12. 12 p.m., prepping for advocacy in action. 12:45 is our advocacy in action meetings. 2 o'clock, we'll be closing and having a performance by the bridge. And at 2:30, we will be adjourning. Some more technical difficulties. It looks like I'll be introducing somebody else. We have Senator Nobles. So Senator Nobles, if you're here, we'd love to hear from you.
I am here. I was starting to chuckle a little bit because I'm like, you all have all these fantastic speakers lined up, but you're stuck with me because they're not here. I am so happy to be here. I'm Senator Tawana Nobles, and I'm just so grateful for the Mockingbird Society and the work that the organization does for our young people and for our community. I am so excited to encourage you all as you prepare to talk about advocacy and using your voice. I like to let folks know that when I was younger and was placed in foster care, that is where I discovered public service. My foster father was an elected official, and I was in 9th grade of high school. And that is when I knew one day I wanted to run for office. And so to be a state senator today and to pass legislation that significantly improves the experiences and lives of youth currently experiencing foster care is just surreal. But when I think about where I started to develop my own voice for advocacy, I think about the periods of time when my parent that we lived with was struggling with a substance use disorder and would leave us for days. And I was in elementary school and middle school, and I would have to take care of my younger brothers. And I think about how important it was for me to make sure that they were, minding me and minding others, and that we got up and went to church, and that I prepared meals, and I would, advocate for them to just be safe and to do the right thing. A lot of times when we think of advocacy, we think of things that we do outside of our home. But I just remember very early, I was an advocate for my brothers and even my mom, and just helping to try to keep her safe and help her to make different decisions in life. But my advocacy started under the roof of my own home, even when things were tremendously unstable. And then when we eventually started living in shelters and we were experiencing homelessness, I even volunteered in the shelters. I helped to do intake, and I was that was middle school and just prior to us being placed in the foster care system. But I would still volunteer and help to do intake and help folks who were new to the shelter. I volunteered in a kitchen and in a clothing bank. That was so I could get first dibs on all the clothing donations. But I started building up my little wardrobe as I was serving in a clothing bank and organizing things. But I like to remind folks that in any situation and circumstance that any of us are in, the one thing that we can give is our time. We can give our treasure. We can give our talent. And sometimes our treasure is monetary treasure, but sometimes it's just the things that we treasure. And I treasure things like love and empathy, and I love to be able to give those things abundantly to my community and to others, even if I'm living in a shelter, even if, I'm experiencing foster care. And I think about continuing to build that voice of advocacy, like what I learned by helping others who were living with us in a shelter, or what I learned by being a voice for my siblings. I directly took that into community. I knew, like, right now, when I talk about affordable housing, and right now when I talk about the needs of our community members who are struggling with their mental health and struggling with the substance use disorder, I think of my family members. I don't need to look far and wide and wonder what that's like. I know exactly what that's like. I know what it's like to live in battered women's shelters with our family because of the experiences that my mom had. So when I advocate for people, I get to use my own lived experience, and there is no shame. There is only power and empowerment that I feel because I know that I have the empathy necessary to be a voice and to be a leader. And I just encourage you all to never feel shame, to always feel powerful. It is our lived experience that makes us the right person to advocate for others. We can't know everyone's experience, but we have enough experience to be a very strong voice in our community. And while I decided in 9th grade that one day I wanted to run for office and I wanted to serve in a public capacity in the way that I am, I didn't quite know that path. And so I just feel very fortunate that everything worked out, and everything from my caseworker, making sure that I was in independent living and transitional living classes, and helped me to get my apartment, and made sure that I started college, and made sure that my daughter had appropriate childcare because I was also a teen mom. That every step along the way, I fully realized that the way that people help me, I wanted to make sure that I help others in my community. So I just encourage you to know that your voice is powerful. I encourage you to recognize that anyone that has supported you or helped you along the way, that it is your responsibility to help others in the same way. So take advantage of everything that you're learning today. Take advantage of all of the positive experiences of your life. I just posted on my Instagram today, just kind of a reflection of, you know, at 16, I was back in a shelter by myself and homeless because I got kicked out when I became a teen mom. And to know that I still graduated high school on time, still obtained my degrees, even though there's so many statistics about what youth who have experienced foster care can't do. I'm here to tell you what we can do. And I went on to become a teacher and become a CEO and become a state senator. And so please, 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 remember where you come from, but stay focused on where you're going. You got this. And thank you for giving me some moments of time today with you all.
Do y'all feel that? That's that feel good, that relatable experience. It feels really good to know that a senator has lived experience and is really speaking with power, getting us started right at the beginning of the day. So thank you so much. Well, Peter, you're up next.
Thank you.
We'd love to hear from you and what you do here with Mockingbird Society.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Welcome all Mockingbirds and allies. And thank you, Senator Nobles and Mrs. Trudy Inslee for joining us. Good to see you guys. And thank you, Trudy, for your previous years of participation with Mockingbird's Youth Advocacy Day and the ongoing support you provide. So as Sierra introduced me, she mentioned I'm a little bit about my background, but as interim executive director, I have the opportunity to deliver a message for Youth Advocacy Day in addition to the welcome. But in truth, I've actually been sort of struggling with what message I should deliver today. I mean, the world has been going through a lot. We all have been experiencing the impacts of the pandemic. But after contemplating this, this is what I've landed on. You are the leaders we've been waiting for. I assumed that when people used to refer to the word leadership, though, that they meant individuals at the top of an organization, like the CEOs or the heads of large institutions, with all the power to make the decisions. And at times they did mean that, but over the years of learning from graduate school to my movement building work in organizing within BIPOC communities, both in Washington State and in other parts of the country, I've come to learn that leadership is actually the actions that people take at whatever level they are within an organization, a community, or society. And that you all have the personal power to exercise positive change. And many of you with lived experience are here at Youth Advocacy Day because you want to change the foster care system so it's better for other children and youth, so that they may not experience the same experiences you have had. And when I studied leadership, I learned that real leadership is about articulating a vision of a better future that encourages others, that appreciates people and collaborates to build collective power for a better world. And you being here today is about voicing that vision. You are the leaders we've been waiting for. As I've been getting to know Mockingbird Society since I joined them in October, I've been privileged to meet some of the youth leaders directly. And I've been having amazing conversations with some of the staff and youth leaders about history. That how throughout the history of the United States, youth have always been at the forefront of social change. It was young leaders who stood on street corners across the colonies to abolish slavery. It was young leaders who stood up to large companies that exploited workers and led to new laws to prevent child labor. It was young African-American leaders that formed the Black Panther Party to create community and economic opportunities for their neighborhoods. It was young Indigenous leaders who took over Alcatraz to demand change for Indigenous people and launched the American Indian movement. It was young undocumented immigrant leaders who formed the DREAM Act coalition that led to change in educational and career opportunities. It was young leaders who organized Black Lives Matter across the country that have reignited the reforms of police and guns. And you are here because you want to end youth homelessness and transform the foster care system. You are all the leaders that we've been waiting for. Your presence here demonstrates your desire to change the systems that are supposed to care for children, and particularly BIPOC children and youth who experience disproportionate barriers and oppression. You share the vision of a new future where children are supported and cared for and have the opportunities to thrive like Senator Nobles shared in her story. From my perspective of being involved in social change and racial equity for many years, I believe we're in a new moment where change is really possible. That change is about eliminating the systems that have caused homelessness and family stress that puts children and youth in foster care systems. The same systems built upon racism have created economic injustices and led to many of our families' challenges. And at this moment in time, the COVID pandemic is creating high levels of anxiety and bringing to light the inequities that need to change. But I believe we are also at a moment in time that there are more policymakers and elected officials that understand this now. They are also better understanding the intersectionality of oppression of individuals such as LGBTQ youth. They are starting to understand that their previous years of silence has complicitly perpetuated oppression. Their new understanding is our opening to mobilize and advocate for our issues, for ourselves, for our communities, our family, and other children and youth. And our work of advocacy to change systems is ultimately an act of resistance and change based on anti-racism principles. We are advocating change of policies and structures that oppress. We are working with organizations to change the power dynamics that oppress. So to recap, our purpose here today is about undoing racism. Our purpose here today is to change the systems that oppress and make a better future for ourselves, other children, youth, and families. I've never seen these sorts of systems changes happen without listening and acting on the voices of people most directly experiencing the consequences of the laws and the policies. And I've never seen change happen without communities organizing and building collective power to create the positive change that's needed. So today's purpose is for each of us and each of you to exercise your leadership for positive change and share your voice collectively to improve legislation and to help work with elected officials to support and advance our vision of positive change. Positive and lasting change occurs when youth organize a collective voice to change the systems. You are the leaders we've been waiting for. So bring your voice, bring your vision, bring your love for your own experience and for others to make a better future for all. So it's my honor to be in solidarity with you on this very important day. Thank you. Now I'm going to pass it over to the next speaker, and it's my honor to introduce Senator Yasmin Trudeau. She is the first woman of color to serve in the 27th Legislative District. Senator Trudeau's depth of legislative knowledge sits on a foundation of lived experiences, bringing compassion and vitality to her tireless advocacy for all those she represents. Welcome, Senator Trudeau.
Thank you. That was a very kind and gracious introduction. I'm really happy to be with you all this morning, and happy to be supportive of Mockingbird Society for a number of years. I'll just start by saying I remember in 2015, I was the legislative assistant to then Senator, now Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal, and came and heard her speak at an event. And it was the first time that I'd really talked about my own experience as a foster youth. And it moved me to be in a room full of so many leaders like you all. And it just brought up a lot for me. So it's kind of bringing up a lot for me right now as well. And just want to let you know that you all are inspiring me as I go into the rest of my day. As I mentioned, getting to join you in this work is really personal to me. I grew up in poverty. My family was actually trafficked into this country in 1989. My mother and I are 14 years apart, and she never learned to read or write in her home language or in English. My father was the trafficker. And as many of you know, this is nothing new, but the trauma we deal with really plays out in so many ways. So I just want to say to you, don't be fooled by what you see. We're all faking it until we make it. And that feeling, I hope once we're able to sort of change the rules of the game and modify our institutions won't always be the case, but don't just look at the polish and be fooled. I have often struggled with a lot of the trauma that I've dealt with throughout my life. And so I'm here to say that I see you, and I hope that you will see me in that struggle as well. Unfortunately, when I'd hit puberty, my relationship to my mother and the trauma she experienced was really just too much for the two of us, and our relationship became very hostile and abusive. I began running away and then ended up in the foster care system formally. I had some positive experiences. I had quite a bit of negative experience. And after I returned home for a short time, I actually refused to go back into the system and instead experienced homelessness, sleeping on couches, and eventually living in a total of 11 homes in 4 years. And I offer this to you, because I think sometimes we think about being in a system or out of a system and what it looks like. And many of our lives are varied at different times in terms of the types of support that we get. But I was really lucky. I was lost, but I was lucky. I had a few people in my life that really cared, some people that saw things in me that frankly I would have never been able to see in myself. If you would have told me at 15 when I was figuring out how the heck I was supposed to eat breakfast and get to school that one day I'd be a lawyer and then eventually running as a state senator to serve the same community that gave me all those couches to sleep on, I would have told you you were crazy. There's no way that could have happened, and yet here I am. So I personally think that we shouldn't have to rely on luck. We truly all deserve the same opportunity to make good decisions and bad decisions. Whatever the decisions that we want to make, we should have the autonomy to do that. We're all deserving of the same opportunity. We're all worthy. And frankly, no matter what circumstances we're born into or what the world tries to tell us, and it will try to tell you all the time that you are unworthy, is that you are. And you are a leader. You've always been a leader. It's what's brought you into this space, and it's what's brought you to surviving into this moment in time. So, my goal in public policy is really to bring my lived experiences to the table. And I'm really grateful for members like Senator Nobles that are, in solidarity with me and sort of understand a lot of the experiences, because boy, it can be really lonely when you're trying to figure out how to navigate some of these conversations when in your head you're just playing out, how's this going to sound? Where do I offer it? Are people even going to see me? Are they going to receive me? Are they going to understand? So I really want to give a shout out to Senator Nobles, who also supported me in getting this seat, because that solidarity is so important. Looking across the room and seeing somebody who sees you is just such a magical moment. My single hope in office is, this might sound a little woo-woo, but to really build a district and state that allows each person to live their best life. Again, to make good choices and to make bad choices, but to make their own choices. And I don't really believe in a binary between good and bad, but for illustrative purposes, that's what I would offer. I just want you all to know, I endlessly admire the things that you all do. I can't believe that you guys are engaging with state legislators. That's incredible. Also something I could have never imagined doing at that same time in life. And I would just offer that as much as people tell you and come to you with sort of the system solutions or academic solutions, nobody will understand the solutions that are best for you and the things that are best for you except you. Feel confident in that and know that. So if someone is telling you something about how you should proceed in life, trust your gut, because it's gotten you this far. It'll get you the rest of the way. So I'm, I'll just tell you that, I'm honored to be in this space, but I'm honored to champion a couple of bills, and I'll just mention a few, and then I think I'm late for committee, so I'm probably going to get pinged to head over to Human Services, where there's going to be kind of a battle on one of my larger bills that I'll mention. So one is around the consent to care. So Senate Bill 5883, which is really focusing on the ability for healthcare decisions for unaccompanied homeless youth or youth experiencing homelessness. That's one I'm really, really passionate about. I think we have the right to make our own decisions, and nothing, especially when we come from situations where we don't have that support, we deserve that autonomy. I also am sponsoring the Washington Future Fund, which would allow for some capital investment for children that are born into poverty. When they turn 18, then they could apply for some of the invested funds to then either start a small business, to purchase a home, or to pursue education, which is pretty broad. I'm trying to make sure that it's low barrier and broadly accessible. I'm also co-sponsoring some legislation you just heard about, which is the Financial Education and Support for Youth, Senate Bill 5824, which is the one Senator Nobles is leading on. So I probably don't need to speak more about that. You all are tracking these issues and are here in this room, but I just really want to say thank you for warming my heart and giving me the chance to, just be in this space and community with you. And if anything comes up, please, I'm only an email or a call away, and I'd be happy to respond to any issues that are important. So I just want to thank you guys, and I hope that the rest of your day is inspiring and that you just continue to engage, because legislators really do need to see you and hear from you.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Senator Trudeau. Thank you so much, Senator Nobles. It's that lived experience and that heart that I think drives us to be here every day. It's that trauma and that experience that makes us stronger and makes us uplift our voices, and it's powerful. And to see senators here talking with us today, talking to people live about what we're doing, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating and taking the time. Absolutely. I'm starstruck. Thank you. And now I will be passing it on to Esther. We're going to be talking about our advocacy agenda.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you for everyone that has shared your personal stories and experiences of being in the system. Thank you for your vulnerability. I don't take that lightly. I appreciate every ounce of what you said today. I needed that personally. And so in finishing up college and just hearing that from you guys, just thank you. I needed that today. Now we will be moving into our advocacy agenda section. And this year we have 3 legislative priorities, which will be introduced by our youth speakers. Our 3 legislative priorities are HB 2034, titled Justice for Justice. And then SB number 5824, Financial Capability of Youth in Foster Care, and a budget request for extended foster care. Now, first up, we have Megan to talk about Justice for Justice. Megan, take it away.
Thank you, Esther. I'm Megan. I'm going to be speaking about Justice for Justice. My Google link isn't working.
We'll give Megan one moment. Whenever you're ready, let us
Okay,
know.
sorry about that. I found that the link for some reason was not opening for me.
No worries. Thank you for being here. Take it away whenever you're ready.
So today I'm going to be talking about Justice for Justice, House Bill 2034. When I was 14 years old, I was arrested for taking my parents' car to try and flee abuse. It was a very long court process and was my first charge ever. But look at me now at 26. You can still pull that record and see what I did at 14. Do I have to live with the mistake that I made when I was a minor? It isn't easy as an adult when someone sees those charges. It makes it very hard to move forward in life. This is why I want to introduce Justice for Justice. The problem we have without this bill currently is that a lot of youth have charges from when they were younger and are still being held for them, though they did everything they needed to correct the offense that they had. I have heard many stories from young adults who are living with the consequences of what they did when they were 12 or 13. And I know some of these youth and work with them, and they are amazing individuals. So why is a record from their past hurting them as an adult? Also, it creates barriers for these youths to gain housing, higher education, employment opportunity, and join in the military, especially for youth who have experienced foster care or homelessness. Well, with Justice for Justice, this bill will delete most juvenile records at age 23 for youth with no pending charges. We hope to change this problem by deleting records of all youth so they can no longer even be found. Yes, there currently is a process for sealing a record, but doesn't promise that the record actually can't be opened ever again. Also, with Justice for Justice, you know how if you go on Google and search someone's name, it will pop up everything about that person? Well, this bill will make it so that whoever is releasing that information after a record is erased can be held accountable for those actions. We have found that BIPOC individuals are more likely to be charged with a crime, and this creates a huge barrier for them getting housing or just moving on in life. Justice for Justice will help seek justice for everyone.
Thank you, Megan, for sharing your story. Your voice and experience is valid and very powerful, and is why we are here today. Next up, we have Emily talking about financial capability of youth in foster care. So thank you for being here, Emily.
Thanks, Sierra. My name is Emily Stochel, and I'm the Acting Program Manager, Statewide Initiatives at the College Success Foundation. I'm also a youth advocate with lived experience. Back in 2012, my peers in the Seattle chapter started brainstorming ideas about creating a savings account program for youth in care. From then on, the conversations evolved, and the topics of financial literacy and capability have continued to be a topic of interest at Mockingbird. This year, the Seattle chapter used input from all those past conversations to develop a thoughtful solution. Since then, Mockingbird advocates and staff have met with over 20 financial institutions and worked hard to develop a bill that addressed the practical challenges we identified and that built on existing resources. This bill has three main components. First, it instructs DCYF to ensure that youth in foster care ages 12 and up know where and how to open a bank account. Secondly, it deposits a $25 monthly allowance into bank accounts owned by youth in care so that youth in care are able to practice money management and pay for incidental expenses. And lastly, it directs DCYF to engage stakeholders, including young people, in order to implement developmentally and culturally appropriate financial education for youth in foster care ages 12 and up. We believe that this bill is one way we can start to create more options, support, and ownership for youth in care. In general, teens experiencing foster care have very little opportunity to make decisions that deeply impact their life, and this is something small that can go a long way. If this bill is passed, approximately 1,630 young people in foster care ages 14 to 20 would be eligible for the monthly allowance. Unlike our counterparts who naturally tend to receive this type of support from their parents, a lot of my peers who experienced foster care didn't have easy access or a mechanism to build financial skills or financial stewardship. Yet at the same time, we are expected to be completely independent and support ourselves when we age out of care. Young people experiencing foster care need to be given the trust, opportunity, responsibility, and autonomy to have ownership over their own financial learning. Through giving teens in care the ability to get their own bank accounts, it safely empowers them to practice money handling skills with small amounts of money before a first job or paycheck. And perhaps most importantly, a bank account and allowance give youth the opportunity to learn to plan ahead instead of perpetuating the cycle of being in survival mode. We not only believe it would be helpful, but more importantly, provide hope for young people in care to be able to have the luxury to think ahead instead of being forced to only exercise those survival skills when we have to. 10 years later, we are thrilled to come full circle now with Senator Nobles and see this bill being supported by stakeholders and other legislators. For those who are new to this bill, we do have a one-pager with the bill details that may be helpful to reference when talking with legislators today. We will drop that in the chat, and it's been distributed as well. Thank you so much for your advocacy on this bill and for wanting to equip youth in care with financial support and education when transitioning into adulthood.
Thank you, Emily. So well written. I'm just amazed today. It's a great thing to be here. Financial accessibility for youth is crucial, and having you touch on that is extremely beneficial. So thank you. Lastly, we have Malik speaking on extended foster care.
Thank you, Sierra. My name is Malik Bradley. I'm a part of the Mockingbird Central chapter and part of the Tacoma's Youth Action Board. Youth transitioning out of care in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic are facing higher economic crisis and homelessness. Youth face the risk of economic crisis and homelessness even outside of the pandemic, with the pandemic outcomes are even worse than before. I currently have 4 siblings in foster care that I frequently fear that when they exit foster care, they will end up homeless, housing unstable or homeless or in a shelter. When you age out of care, there is very little safety net. While we are in the pandemic that is impacting people's ability to work and make ends meet, we need to prioritize supporting our youth who are exiting out of care. This monthly payment for youth exiting care would help them survive one of the most prolonged traumatic events to happen to them next to entering foster care. I think it's important that we advocate for this budget request to continue monthly financial assistance for youth who age out of extended foster care during the pandemic and through the Brittany, and thank you.
Thank you, Malik, for being here and speaking on our last topic. It's always great to share your experiences, and thank you for being open with us. And thank you all who took the time to listen to our youth voices. They matter, and they're the reason why we're here. I now have the pleasure to introduce Liz Troutman, who is our Director of Public Policy and Advocacy. Welcome, Liz.
Thanks, Sierra. Good morning, everybody. It is so fabulous to be here on one of my favorite days of the year, Youth Advocacy Day. I want to thank again Megan and Emily and Malik for your incredible speeches and educating us all about the legislative priorities that we're here to advocate for today. And Senator Nobles and Senator Trudeau for inspiring us this morning with your stories and your words of wisdom. So we've also all just demonstrated just this morning one of the most crucial skills for advocacy, which is flexibility and rolling with changing situations. Tech is tech, and it can be hard to follow Zoom links, and it can be hard to find all our remarks and all of our materials. And everybody did a fantastic job rolling through changing circumstances, and that will serve you well today. And so I'm grateful for everybody's flexibility this morning as we got our morning program started. In just a few minutes, I'll introduce our terrific policy panel, but first I'm going to talk a little bit about what to expect for your legislative meetings and share some tips and tricks. Everybody who registered to participate in the advocacy and action portion of the day has been assigned to a group. And if you're not sure what group you're in, the list is in the YAD Google Drive, which everybody should have received a link to. And I bet it's going into the YouTube chat right now as well. Every group has one or two group leads who will help the group prepare for the meeting. And finally, every group has been assigned to a couple of legislative meetings, and you can find the links to those meetings also in the Google Drive. Most of them are Zoom links. There's a couple of Microsoft Teams meetings. Your legislative meetings will only be probably about 15 minutes long, and some of them may be even shorter. So being on time and preparing a plan for the meeting in advance will be really important. And you'll have time to prepare for those meetings just after this morning program and after the policy panel. And your group leads are there to help you do that and come up with a great plan for the meeting. You should also try to get to your legislative meeting and join that link just a couple minutes before your scheduled start time, so that you have time to troubleshoot any connection issues or any other tech issues, or if there's a link issue. So give yourself, 4 or 5 minutes to just get on that Zoom before the meeting starts. Once you're in that meeting, be sure to thank the legislator for their time. Share why you think the legislative priorities are important and ask them for their support. They may have questions. And if you have the answer, great. If you don't have the answer, no problem. Just offer to follow up and find out more. And your group lead can write down questions and make sure they get back to myself or Lauren on the policy team, and we can follow up. So again, it's going to be a great day of advocacy. How are we going to start prepping for our meetings? Following our policy panel, there will be time to grab some lunch and begin prep. Most meetings are going to start at 12:30 or later. However, you'll see on the screen right now, if you are in group 2, group 3, group 4, or group 8, you have a slightly earlier meeting. So you're going to want to start prepping as soon as that policy panel ends. You should have received a link to the Advocacy and Action prep Zoom. And there will be breakout rooms pre-created for each group. So as you join, you'll be placed into your appropriate group. Again, if you're in groups 2, 3, 4, or 8, plan to join the Zoom right after the policy panel wraps up at 11:30. All other groups, you can join at noon to begin prep. Group leads, please try to join a little early so that you can be there to welcome your group. If you have questions at any point, pop them in the Zoom chat and someone will be available to help you. The most important thing to remember for today is to breathe, speak from the heart, and have fun. You know more about these issues that we're here to talk about than pretty much any legislator you're going to talk to today. And this is an incredible opportunity for them to learn from you. So I hope you remember that, and I hope you just take that with you into these meetings. Speaking of experience and expertise, I am delighted now to close our morning program and turn the mic over to my colleague and partner in legislative advocacy, Mockingbird's contract lobbyist, Sam Martin. Sam will be facilitating a panel discussion with a group of fantastic people who have made their careers in the policy space and who also have lived experience in the systems they are working to change and that we're working to change. Sam was actually a panelist last year, and so I am so thrilled to welcome him back to YAD as our panel facilitator this year. So I will turn it over to Sam.
Good morning, still morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Martin. As Liz said, I'm the contract lobbyist with Mockingbird. Also was a former network representative and former chapter leader for Seattle, and have definitely been in the Mockingbird fold for a little while now. Really, really happy to be here and to host this really awesome panel with you all. And so I will introduce my panelists in just a moment and allow them to introduce themselves. And I will start with Lily if you are ready to introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm ready to introduce myself. Hello and good morning, everyone. My name is Lily Corey. I use she, her pronouns. And I am really honored to be here with you all today. As Liz and Sam mentioned, I also have lived experience in the system, and I have made it my life's goal to work to reform and to reestablish these systems. So really excited to be here today. Do I also mention what my affiliation with Mockingbird is too, Sam?
Yes, it would be great. And like what you're doing now, like your job and organization and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, cool, great. So I started off in direct service because when I was younger, I was like only told that the only job I thought existed was social work and teachers, because like those were the people who were a part of my life. But as I did direct service, I had the opportunity to work with a lot of really amazing young people and witness injustices in the system that I felt really compelled to see shift and change. And actually, when I was working up in Skagit County, there was a chapter meeting up there that young people that I worked with would go to. So I always knew about Mockingbird, but I never really knew like the impact of Mockingbird. And then I decided to go to grad school and focus on policy. And that is when I got placed at Mockingbird, and I learned real fast the impact that Mockingbird had. And I learned a lot about the legislative process. I learned a lot about like the technical pieces to like what I knew were true, right? And how to like better advocate, because now I had this like systems language that I could use to talk about issues versus like, this is my own experience, right? And thankfully now I am actually on the board. So still have continued and worked with Mockingbird for a while now, but am on the board. And right now I currently work on behalf of LGBTQ plus young people across the state, implementing safer and affirming care in systems of care. So this is related to juvenile justice and foster care and homeless services. So that is what I currently do. And that is my long journey to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you. And we have our other panelist, Mercedes Whitecalf. We're so glad to have you here as well today. And so if you wanted to just introduce yourself, your organization, your position, and how you're related to Mockingbird.
Okay, my name, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, I've been in sessions this morning, well, trying to get in there, and I've been having some issues. So if something goes wrong, just kind of wave if you can't hear me. So my name is Mercedes Whitecalf. I am Native American. I'm half Oglala Sioux and half Black. I was raised by a mother who came from the reservation and went to boarding school in the 50s in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And I say that not to make myself different, but so that you kind of understand how my culture shaped the way I saw the world and the way I saw myself and what I wanted to do. So as I grew up, with humble beginnings, to say the least. For the first few years of my life, I was homeless with my mom and my grandma, and we stayed in a car. When my mom was able to access housing with Section 8, our lives got a little bit better. And basically, I'm trying. Okay, is this the part that I'm speaking the whole thing, or just introducing myself?
You're good.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I get nervous on this kind of stuff. I don't know why with my peers. If it's something else and I'm fighting for my rights, I'm like, put me in there. But so my mom got into Section 8 housing. I lived there. I lived with my mom like my entire life. She struggled with drug addiction, and she was on heroin. And so things were not good. And growing up, I used to say, why didn't you just give me up? If you were going to give me this kind of life. And I had a really hard childhood, partly because our situation, but also the way I felt about myself. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. And so, it was a lot of trauma and a lot of dysfunction there. And I went to school feeling like I had all these secrets and I was really different from everyone else. And I got bullied a lot, and people talked about me and left me out. And, and I remember eating lunch with teachers and underneath the bleachers because, oh gosh, I don't want to cry. So I never thought my future would be anything bright. Everything around me was very dark. And I ended up I went to a performing arts school, and luckily there were a lot of teachers who were African-American, Latinx, and then also Native American. And they poured into me and they let me know, if you could do good in school, that's it. Just do good in school. Don't worry about, school clothes or not looking good. Or if you have friends, like, you can change your whole life and your family's life. You could buy your mom a house. You could buy your own car. And these things that I thought I didn't know were possible. And that's what I did. And my mom got off of drugs when I was 13, and our relationship definitely got better. And I got into college. I got a scholarship from Bill Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I went to the University of Oregon, but unfortunately, everything that, like, I did all those great things, but I had a lot of trauma. So it all went with me. Not to mention, I went to a school that was severely underfunded. Most of our assignments were always handwritten. We never typed anything except for my college admissions. And the first class I took, I turned in a handwritten assignment, and I remember the professor laughed at me. And that's just how far behind I was. I didn't know. And I felt like everybody had tricked me or, put me into this situation that I wasn't able to sustain. And, but I stuck in there, I held in there, I had my faith. And I just, honestly, I said, God, if you're out there, help me. And I will say it took me about 8 years to get a 4-year degree, but I got it. And degrees don't have numbers. So that's the good thing. And Gates continued to pay for my education. I got involved in politics when I was at the University of Oregon because, I don't know, something in me just always wanted to be like this big star or the president or like some big rapper or singer. I can't rap or sing, but just something. I wanted people to know my name. And I seen all these kids that were like, well, my age, they were like running around, they had papers, they were printing stuff, they were talking to each other. I think they looked really important, and they were in the center of our university, and they were in this secluded but glass room. And I noticed people respected them. they had a lot of respect. Like people just stood up straight when they came around. And I said, you know, who are these people? And I found out that they were the student government. And so I said, I want to be in it. How do I get into it? And I started with the Black Student Union and the Native American Student Union. And I just started as a member. And then I started to attend the meetings, and they would say things like, hey, we need somebody to set up for this event. We need someone to set up for powwow. We need someone to set up, you know, for Martin Luther King Day, Kwanzaa. And I was there. I was always there. And then when position times came at the end of the year, you know, I would run for a position, and I would talk to the people in it. Like, do I have a chance? What do I have to do? And they mentored me, and that's what I did. And then I was public relations. I did public relations on both the Native American Student Union and the Black Student Union. And what fortunately happened my year is that an African American ran for president of the University of Oregon. And she did not win, but she started to mentor me. And she said, you can do this. She said, you know, but there's something better than being the president. And I said, what could be better than the president? And she said, being on the University of Oregon Student Senate, because you control like a few $1 million. And I thought, really? She said, and there's only 20 people. And so I said, okay. And I ran the next year. I had a really low budget, and I didn't really have a campaign going. But what also happened again, luckily, is an African-American man and a Jewish woman ran for president and vice president. We call them ticket seats. And they won, and they appointed me to Senate. And so I didn't have to campaign because I didn't have any money. I didn't have any connections. I wasn't in the sorority. I was never part of the cool club. I was always the last in line. I'm so sorry. I didn't think a lot of myself, but luckily our community is so amazing. The BIPOC communities, the allies, you know, the marginalized communities, they will believe in you until you learn to believe in yourself. And you need that. And so I got in that position. And what the thing that happened about me is that I got sent home my freshman year of college to go home in summertime. And I told them, like, please don't send me home because I might not make it back. I grew up in a neighborhood that was full of gangs. My brothers are in gangs. It was a lot of crime, and there were not a lot of resources. And the only way that I knew to make money or access any kind of money was criminal behavior. And I engaged in it. I told them, if you send me home, like, I might not be able to make it back. I might go to jail, you know? And they said, you just don't have funding for summertime. And so I went back, and that's what happened. I ended up on the news for doing some stupid stuff for money. And I almost lost my scholarship, and I almost got kicked out the university. So fast forward back to, I'm in the Senate seat, that comes up. And I was humiliated. You know, they talked about how I shouldn't be there and I didn't deserve to be there. And the crazy thing about politics is they will play on that where this, you know, we come from this background and we belong here. And people down there, if we give them a chance, you know, they always got something to hide. They're, you know, we're criminalized. We're never given a break. And that's what it felt like. And but I didn't step down. And I stayed, and I got bullied, I got some hate mail, but I stayed because I was the program finance seat. And that means I got to be on the committee to finance the student unions. And it wasn't a conflict of interest if you join ethics and efficiency committee, and that's what I did. And so I was able to hear everybody, and I learned about all the different unions and people that were like me and, you know, in our unions. And we got together, and I did let my grades slip. I ended up getting disqualified for bad grades, but it was because for the first time I could choose what happened in my future. Like, I had a say. Somebody listened to me. My voice mattered. Nobody ever listened to me. I was always an afterthought. And everybody that I came from and was around. And I felt like it was a good thing. And I can go home and say, Mom, things have changed. Because when I was little, my mom used to always show us this picture. And it was a picture my grandfather took, my great grandfather. And it was a sign, and it said, no dogs, no niggers, no Indians. And I wanted her to know, like, it doesn't have to be that way, you know, and things are changing. So, so I got addicted to just being in policy and advocating for myself. And I got burned out, you know, and unfortunately I developed an alcohol problem that led into a severe alcohol problem. And that's kind of what took me so long to graduate. My senior year, they told me, I was like 24. They told me, hey, you need to graduate. No, I was like 25, 26. I was old for undergrad, but they said, Mercedes, you've been disqualified from the university for a 1.6 GPA, and we don't know how you got in. And you've been disqualified 3 times. So we're going to give you one chance. You have 60 credits to graduate. And at this time I had lost my scholarship. And they said, you have 60 credits to graduate. You got 3 terms to get it done. So you need to take 20 credits every term and get at least a B average. And I had never taken 12 credits in college and got a B average. So I was so afraid. But I believe in a higher power of my creator. And that is what carried me through, because the first term I was homeless. I lived in my car, and I went and I would go to class with everyone else. And then I'm so emotional. I'm so sorry. I never talk about this part really. But I lived in my car, and I would go to school. No, I would go to the YMCA. It was $1.50 to you go swimming. Instead, I would pay $1.50 and I would shower and get ready for school, get in my car, park it far away because all my belongings were in there and I didn't want anyone to know I lived in my car, go to class, go to the library as long as I could stay, do my work. And when it was dark enough, go home or go to my car and find a place that was not by any students and sleep there. And I did it for almost 3 months. And voices in my head told me, like, when I'm done with you, you'll be living in your car, some old lady that nobody cares about, and you'll never graduate. And I will say that at the end of my senior year, I got 60 credits in all A's. I graduated with a 4.025 GPA, and I couldn't believe it. So I got asked to be a speaker. And then I got a job at a law firm, and I got a brand new car. And this is what was amazing. Nobody in my family ever went to college. And they said, can you please let me know how much time, how many minutes?
You got time. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Okay. So what was amazing about that is I was a first generation student. Like I had never, like no one in my family ever graduated from college. And part of the reason I went back was because of my mom. She asked me to go back because I was giving up on myself, but I didn't want to let her down, you know? And oh my gosh, my mom means everything to me. She's like my biggest fan. And so I got the degree, I got into a law firm, and like a really prestigious insurance law firm. I was the only person of color. I was one of only women. One of like 4 to 6 women. And I got a brand new lease car. I walked off the lot with a brand new lease car. I grew up, my mom never even had a car. I didn't know, it was possible. So I was like, I have arrived. But to be honest, I felt worse than I did when I didn't have those things. And this was because I was following that American dream. Like if you have all these things, you'll be happy. Your life will be better and you'll be worth something. People will see you, they'll notice you, and life is good. But that's not true, because they're just things, and that you don't have that fulfilling life. And I experimented with drugs for the first time. I always swore I would never do drugs because my mom, I watched her do it. I grew up around spoons and needles and all that stuff. And but I still had a good mom. I need to say that, because my mom was on heroin, and she raised me, and she raised a couple other kids that were not her own. So she did a lot with being on drugs that I see some women, now that have kids and they're not on drugs, So I give all praise to my mom. Okay. So I'm working, I'm experimenting with the drugs. And I'm not doing good. And I also have bipolar disorder. And I got this idea that I would go, because I always wanted to be like a talk show host like Oprah too. So I went to Los Angeles, and I just decided that I was going to work for Oprah. She had just opened a studio, and I didn't know how I was going to get there. I didn't have a lot of money. I had just enough gas to get me there. And I got to about the south part of Los Angeles. And what I didn't know is that's not the place you want to end up, in South Central, with no money in a car. And that's what I did. I ended up there, and I met some people who were on drugs. And to be honest, I thought it was cool because they were all Black. They had tattoos all over their face. And I thought, like, ooh, Tupac. Like, I'm like in the videos, like, and I didn't realize, like, people were dying there. There was constantly shootings. There was drug addiction. There were no resources. They didn't even have soup lines and food lines or anything like that. Like, it was so scarce. And there was a lot of prostitution and human trafficking, because most women there that are in prostitution are not there because they want to be, and they're not independent. So I just need to say that. But what I did is I got involved in methamphetamine. And it took everything from me. I lost that car, and my dreams of being like Oprah or going to law school or anything, they were gone. And I got a boyfriend who I always wanted somebody that just loved me, because I didn't have a dad growing up and stuff. And I got on drugs, and he totaled that car, and I found myself living in abandoned buildings with him. And he was very abusive, and I thought I was going to die. And even his family told me, he's going to kill you. He's going to beat you to death. And I was so embarrassed, because here I was, this college graduate, this Bill Gates scholar, this law school potential, like all these things. But I was on meth, and I was, I didn't have a car, and I'd done all these things, and I just couldn't go home and face that. So I stayed. And eventually what happened is my mom, she kept telling me, you need to come home. And she relapsed on heroin. And just to make a long story short, I got a call one day, and they said, your mom's dead. They found her under her bed. She overdosed. If I had any sanity, it was gone in that moment. And I will never be the same. I'll never be that person again. And I was mad, and I was like, Mom, how could you give up on me? Like, I was going to buy you a house. I was going to do all these things, and you're gone. Like, now what am I going to do? And I just fell really deep into my addiction. And I ended up getting kidnapped for human trafficking. I was brutalized, and I got away. I ran away. I'm so thankful, because I know they would have killed me. And I came back home to Portland, and I'll make a long story short there. I stayed behind the Greyhound in a tent for years, and I lived there, and I slept on park benches, and I slept in doorways, and I almost got, I was assaulted a few times there, and I still was addicted to meth. And I told God one day, I said, look, I'm a disgrace to my family. This is not the way that my grandfather and my mom would want me to be. And if this is how I'm going to live, just please take my life, but don't make it hurt. And if you're not going to take my life, then get me clean, because I can't. And I got clean about 3 weeks after that. And I'm coming up on 3 years clean now. And what I did is I got into Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous, and I was going to meetings for a month and staying in a tent. And it was pretty, embarrassing, but I held on, because I was clean, and that was the one thing I wanted. And it's the one thing I knew my mom wanted. And if I was clean, I felt like I would have been there when she died. And I couldn't take that back. I can't take that back, but I can make a living amends by staying clean and not using in her honor. So I became a janitor. When I was a janitor, and I got into a treatment program, and I was just grateful that I had anything. But I said, God, I don't want to sound like I'm ungrateful, but I don't want to clean toilets for the rest of my life. I don't like the way people treat me. Don't they know that once I was a senator, and once, all these things, but it doesn't matter now. And I met a lady going to the meetings, and she hired me as a housing specialist for women fleeing domestic violence and human trafficking. And I gave my all in it. I said, okay, this is a job I can believe in. This is a group of women. My clients are someone I can give them everything I got, because I know, what they're feeling, and I can give them hope. And some of my clients, were like, I want to go back to school. I want to go to college. And I helped them. And some of them got in to Portland State University, and University of Washington, Vancouver. no, Washington State University, Vancouver. And it let me know, like, I'm here for a reason, you know. And I thought about all the days that I sat on the train with nowhere to go, and I would just get on the train and I'd be like, well, wherever it takes me, that's where I'm going tonight. And here I am, I'm helping to change lives. And what ended up happening is there were things and rules that were in place for these women that I didn't agree with. They weren't allowed to go to college and get assistance. And I couldn't understand that. Like you say, you want their future to be bright, but you don't want them to have any type of help or resources. You kind of are just helping them need the government. And so I had to sneak and help them and show them how I did it. And I was getting in trouble at work, and they were being mean, and there was some hierarchy going on. And it got to the point where I was working at that job, and right before I would go in, I would throw up, and then I would go to work. It was that toxic. And I have a sponsor, like a spiritual mentor, and she said, when are you going to quit? How long are you going to let this last? And I said, I don't know. Like, I can't quit a job. Like, because my family, the highest thing that you could do was work at DMV and retire. So I couldn't quit a job. I thought I was going to retire there. And just listening to spiritual and motivational speeches on YouTube, honestly, and not entertaining any other thought that I was not going to change the world and do something amazing. Like, I quit my job. And when I quit my job, I was so scared. And I was like, what did I do? Oh my gosh, I better go kiss butt and get that job back, And, but I stayed still. And my spiritual mentor said, find a job that you really want to do. One that you don't feel like that they would hire you, but that you really want to do. And apply. Make sure you can do that job description. And I said, okay. And she said, but one thing, whatever you do, don't lie. Don't lie on your resume and don't lie on your cover letter. Well, to be honest, like, since I can remember, everything after my name, my email, and my address was a lie. Time, what does he call it? Punctual, organized, time set, all those things I'm not. But what I am is I'm honest, I'm open, I'm willing, I can work with others, I'm respectful, I know policy, I can read, and I'm encouraging. And that will get you a job. And I end up getting hired there. And that's at NAYA, the Native American Youth and Family Center. And if you remember, I said there were mentors and community leaders that poured into me and told me I can go to college. Well, this program was that for me. Now, when I went there, we were like in a basement building that was still being built on, and it was ran by volunteers, Native volunteers. We are now a multi-million organization, multi-million-dollar, employing over like 100 employees. And I got hired in advocacy and policy, and I didn't try. I didn't look at the title of the job. I didn't look at how much you got paid. I just looked at something that I knew I could do in my sleep without any training, without, like something that I could believe in again. And so that's what I did. And and thank goodness I did. My boss is somebody who is also like me. And so he didn't break me down or try to hurt me. And to be honest, if you would have asked me what a bill was 6 months ago, I would have said something that comes to my house that I don't want to pay. Like, I knew nothing about, like, I could read and I knew some things. I knew parliamentary procedure, Robert's rules, but I didn't know how the laws work at all. I didn't know the difference between a law, initiative, referendum, any of that stuff. And what happened was my boss just said, hey, get online and figure it out, learn. And whatever you don't know, I'll teach you. And when I got on there, I said, some of the stuff I don't know, I don't get it. And he said, that's okay, because the system was made for us not to understand. And that meant everything to me, because in those moments, he could have easily, stroked his own ego and, stepped on me for not knowing. But he built me up. And that's what a good leader does. They build everyone around them up, because you never know, you might need that teammate one day to build you up when you're, feeling down. And I'm a part of that team. And now, obviously, well, no, not obviously. So what's happening now is I got an agenda. I learned what a bill was, and I learned how a bill becomes a law. I learned about a lot of those things. I would go to the law.leg.gov. I watched all those tutorials. If I didn't understand, I would go to Legislative Information Center, call them and say, hey, this is going on. And they don't understand either. So they'll say, give us your email. We'll have somebody get back to you. And that's how it went. And by the time, I guess fall came, I started reaching out to other organizations. I put BIPOC organizations in Washington, and I reached out to as many as I could. And I didn't get a hold of the Mockingbird Society specifically, but we were introduced through another organization. And that's how it works, I learned. We just set up meet and greets like, hey, you know, you're working on advocacy and policy, me too. Well, do you want to meet the advocacy specialist? Do you want to meet our advocacy coordinator? You know, okay, there's another organization and you can meet their advocacy coordinator. And then I was like, okay. And I learned, well, my boss said, okay, we have 4 categories, you know, education, youth and education, housing and homelessness, economic development, wellness, like, well-being, wellness, you know, like mental health kind of stuff, and climate. I don't want to say it like that, mental health, that's important, and climate. And so I went and I found things that lined up with that. And I found Governor Inslee's budget. And he's got like this amazing budget. And I always thought they didn't care about us. That's what I was taught, you know. And he's got this budget for education. It was like $1 billion. He had the salmon recovery thing, 167 million, you know, all those things. And then I got with RAP and the Housing Alliance and joined, you know, their agenda. And I signed on pro. You know, I found out what was going on. I read the bill analysis or the bill report, depending on if it was Senate or House. And I got familiar and I reached out to people and said, what does this mean? You know, and then when it was time, I signed up to testify. And I watched other testimonies. You know, I wanted to see what was effective, what was, you know, seeming to get through to the lawmakers. And then I had to come to a moment like, I can't be somebody else who they want me to be. I can't be like the person with the great speech. I can only be Mercedes. That is what got me here this far. And there's something to offer. I may not be everybody's meow or whatever, cup of tea, but everybody's important and everybody needs someone to relate to. And there is someone that can relate to me. And what I've gone through does matter, because everybody who's gone through my stuff, some are not alive. And if they are alive, they're still on drugs or they're crazy in a mental institution. And it's my obligation, because I made it to this side, to make it count. And I truly believe that. And I feel honored to do what I do. I know I was supposed to do an introduction, but that's what happens when you give me a platform to talk about what I do in my life.
It happens, right? And to be able to, I think it was important for you to share your story, right? And to be able to have this space. And I know for me, it resonated, right? Because so many things of what you talked about is similar to my experience as well, too. And so many other folks were watching and listening and experience these things as well, too. And so I'm just grateful for you. And I'm grateful that you're here and just, I'm about to send you an email after this so we can like tap in, work together and like, you know, continue the good work, right? That's the kind of thing that, that's the kind of impact you have. And I know there are other folks who are feeling this exact same way. So thank you to you. Real quick, I wanted to remind folks to have the 11:30, the Advocacy and Action Zoom link is about to be open in just a second. So if you got to jump to that, jump to that. We are coming kind of towards the end of our panel time. And so I did want to just give you both one last question, just to be able to kind of send our young people off with, you know, some advice, or what is one thing you would say to a young person today, just about your experience and what you would want them to know as they go forward in their journey too. So I'll let either one of y'all take that.
I think first I just want to acknowledge Mercedes. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Everything that you were talking about like resonated so deeply. And just so that vulnerability is shared in the space, I also lost both of my parents to drugs. So a lot of love to what you're saying, because it really did. I can't emphasize enough, like we can't be alone in this, right? And your vulnerability is so important, and the injustices are so real. And you are out here doing it, and don't let anyone ever tell you you are too much or you can't be in this work, because you are like absolutely killing it. And like Sam said, anything I can do to like support you, please. Again, solidarity is important and I feel you. The thing that I guess I would say is, you know, don't let anyone tell you that what you've been through is it is gonna be the determining thing for your future. Like, just because you grew up in care, just because you were in juvenile justice, just because you're homeless, does not mean that you are bad or that you are damaged or that you cannot make impact, because you absolutely can. And it's so critical that you do. And so that's the thing I'll leave with you today is I hope you feel really empowered, and I hope you feel really emboldened, and I hope you feel like it is your right to say what you need to say to your people who represent you, because you deserve that and your voice matters regardless of where you come from. So that's what I'll say to that.
Thank you. Mercedes?
Gosh, I feel like I took it over. I'm so sorry, Lily. I would say find something to believe in and go for it. And the things that make you, there's a saying that says, everything I'm not made me everything I am. Like, whatever it is that you're fighting or you're dealing with, or you think that counts you out, like that's the thing that is going to propel you. I promise. And if you don't believe it, believe that I believe it. So thank you.
Thank you both so much. And I do think that that's, both y'all just have some really compelling points. And I'm just so grateful to, you know, even just occupy the same space as y'all today. And there's so much good work to continue to be done. And there's a lot of young people who are really looking, you know, to folks like us who are the next generation of leaders as well, too. And so as we continue to kind of go forward in this work, this is the kind of thing that is us kind of pulling those people next up with us, right? And so sometimes we have to believe in them before they believe in themselves too, like you said, Mercedes. And hopefully the folks who watched this enjoyed it today. We'll bring this panel to a close, and I'm sure that Mockingbird staff will provide you with all of our contact information for anybody who's watching that wants it. And I'm sure my panelists are willing to share that info as well too. So yes, and Mercedes just said in the chat, if anyone needs a mentor, she's there. I'm sure Lily feels the same, and I do as well too. So we are here for y'all, and we're doing this work for y'all too. So thank you, everybody, and that brings our panel to a close.
Amazing. I'm speechless. I want you all to know that I wish it was longer. We only had 30 minutes with you all, but I'm so grateful for that. The YouTube live is blowing up with so much love. I encourage you all to go visit that. We have some great youth who are watching right now. There's so much love in this Zoom. So thank you, Sam. Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you, Lily, and all of our morning speakers and contributing your voice to help make change in the foster care system. It's moving. I was crying in silence with my camera off. It's probably as much as everybody else. So thank you. So now we'll be moving into Advocacy and Action Lunch with DJ Trademark, which will be held on Zoom. We want to say a special thank you to DJ Trademark for joining us for another Youth Advocacy Day. Some meetings will be at noon. Prep for those will start during lunchtime. This is only for those who have the earlier meetings. Groups that need to prep and meet early are shown on the screen. I think it was 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 8. 2, 3, 4, and 8. So those groups will be the ones meeting earlier. If anyone needs a link or meeting information to check the Google Drive, we'll be dropping the link for that page in our chat here as well. The live stream will be ending. So thank you all for being here on the YouTube Live. Thank you for the love. Thank you so much for being here, sharing your stories. Thank you for just being so real. I think that's really important for what we do here. I'm inspired. This is my first Youth Advocacy Day, and I got no warning. I had no worry about how real this would be, and I'm happy that I'm here to be a part of that. So yes, we will be ending. Thank you all for watching on YouTube live. And if you want to be a part of more throughout the year, make sure to visit us at mockingbirdssociety.org. And thank you, Kim. Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you on the other side.